So I just got off of Skype with Jenny from Solace for Mothers, which is an amazing resource if you're still in the thick of the healing process. They offer healing resources and a full forum filled with moms and others who have experienced birth trauma. Solace for Mothers really helped me heal when I was first dealing with my birth trauma. She's also on the board for CIMS, which is the Coalition for Improving Maternity Services. CIMS is in charge of the Mother Friendly Initiative, if you've heard of it. It's basically a model hospitals and providers can follow that is evidence-based and gives participating groups a new status that they can achieve, that of mother-friendly. They also have the birth survey, which is a form you can fill out to rate your childbirth experience. If you do nothing else, go do the birth survey. It's confidential. The idea is that women will check the birth survey prior to selecting their doctor so that they can see the experience other women have and potentially avoid, birth trauma problems, among other things, of course. So in my conversation with Jenny, we talked a lot about prevention. How do we prevent birth trauma from happening, which I think is fantastic. Obviously, we certainly need prevention things put in place. The whole birth, the concept of birth obviously is not new anywhere. People have been birthing since, well, forever. But the idea of a natural birth is somewhat new in the United States. Not having it medically processed. That's we need to put things in place and educate doctors so that they can do that and we can avoid birth trauma problems. So I hope that I can help in the process along the way. It was really nice talking to her about that. It really solidified my resolve to get new legislation put in place, put in the minds of change makers, because there's nothing in place right now. For example, if a hospital goes forward and becomes a mother-friendly facility, what recourse is there for the doctor who still unnecessarily causes birth trauma and, by acts of perinatal violence? Sure, they could take away their mother-friendly status, which would be horrible PR. It would be a nightmare. They could fire the doctor, or he or she could even lose a medical license. But in terms of true violence, perinatal violence, is that enough? There's a fine line between enough and too much, and we have to be sure not to cross that line. In my birth trauma experience, I complained to everyone I could possibly think of, every resource. I talked to the police. I talked to the doctor's office involved. I complained to the hospital in writing. I talked to the Medical Licensing Board, the Joint Commission, the ACLU. I talked to everybody, and so far I haven't come up with anything. Nobody can do anything about it. I'm still waiting to hear from the Medical Licensing Board here in Delaware and the Joint Commission. It's under review for both of them, which is good. The Medical Licensing Board wrote me and said that the doctor may have acted out of misconduct, so that's a plus in my case. But it's so frustrating to know that my doctor, at least at this point, pretty much got away with rape. Yes, I said rape, and you can get over it. If you don't like it, that's fine. So substitute the word with violation. I was violated. That's fine too. That's how I choose to identify it. You can read my story. I'll post my story under here, and you can read it if you want. There's nothing I can do about what he did to me because he's a doctor, and that is so frustrating. So yes, I desperately want to get more prevention out there, and we need to educate our medical professionals better, but there also needs to be some kind of recourse in place for, when we need to stick up for ourselves after the case. I tell women as a doula, you have to be your own advocate. I hope that your partner can be your advocate too. I hope that you have a doula to also be your advocate. But when it comes down to it, we need to do our own research. We need to be our own advocate. And in some cases, sometimes the doctor still tries to take advantage. And that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the severity of the problem. That's what happened in my case. I had done my research. I had my doula. I had my husband. And the doctor still violated. We'll go with violated. Um, we also talked about the lack of access to the care that we desire. Did you know that here in Delaware, where I am, we can't have midwives attend home births at all? I think I heard someone say that the Amish and Mormon communities can have midwifery care due to their religion. Um, at least we're talking home births. You know, they have midwives who can work in the hospitals and whatnot. Um, but the rest of us can't have those home birth with midwives. I don't know enough about the state of midwifery care here to really speak on it, but I do know that there are currently no midwives in Delaware who will or is allowed to attend home births. The few in the state around us, a couple of states around us, who would have been given, who would have come over and provided that care, have been given cease and desist orders and can no longer cross borders. Not sure what their status is in their own states. It's just a mess, to be honest. It's just a mess that a woman can't obtain the care that she needs or desires for her own body and her child. It's true when folks tell you to labor at home as long as possible and then go to the hospital. Ultimately, you know, hospitals and OB offices practice active management when it comes to childbirth, which basically, in a very, very small nutshell, is a pet peeve of mine, basically means that they have the same procedures for every laboring patient. Um, Obviously, it varies, you know, if you have certain problems. But if the patient, for example, labors too long, you know, they give her induction meds. What is too long? We'll get into that later. It's a pet peeve of mine. Of course, the induction meds only cause further problems, and then they'll need more meds, and then possibly a C-section, you know, when it comes down to it. You know, fetal monitors on every patient. You have to birth lying down. Why? Why are these things even put in place? They're not evidence-based at all, but it's still routine care in the United States. You know, birth is different for every mother, and it's not routine. So now we have two options here in Delaware. That is, you know, birth in a hospital setting, which is sometimes, if not most of the time, the more unsafe option of the two, or we can birth at home in an unassisted setting with no medical professional. Wouldn't it make more sense to offer the option for those mothers who want to have that birth at home, you know, to have a medical professional at her birth, even though she's at home? Wouldn't that just make more sense? Um, wouldn't lawmakers and doctors rather see her birth with a medical professional? I fully trust in birth and that a mother can birth unassisted in most situations with no problems. I just can't understand doctors wanting all these unnecessary things for our bodies and our babies, and then when we try to avoid all that nonsense and birth at home with someone qualified to attend that home birth, we can't even obtain that. It's mind-boggling. I don't get it. And that's why I started this whole blog, is, you know, so I can better understand the state of care in the United States and elsewhere. You know, so we can have some kind of standing ground as far as recourse if, you know, doctors don't follow the mother-friendly initiative, or, you know, just acts of perinatal violence to begin with.